Hello and welcome to Master in Market. My name is Grady Arno. I'm an associate director of Fuqua, and I am excited to be here with WeiNi. WeiNi, if you wouldn't mind starting off with an introduction. You're from the class of 2017 of the MMS program. I'm really excited to talk to you.
Sounds good. Hi, Grady. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here. So I am a 2017 MMS graduate from the Fuqua School of Business, and I'm currently with Deloitte's financial services practice in New York.
That's fantastic. And what was your background before you got to Fuqua?
Yeah, for sure. So I was originally born in China, and then we moved to Canada when I was 12, where I did my high school and undergrad. So I studied finance and business technology management at the University of British Columbia. And I took a year gap before coming to Duke, where I worked in the financial services practice as well.
That's perfect. So I've heard that you just recently got promoted to a manager at Deloitte. So tell us a little bit about what that role looks like.
Yeah, for sure. So it's actually my third role at Deloitte. I'm just hitting the 6 years mark now. So I started as a consultant, then a senior consultant, and now a manager. And as the title suggests, there's definitely a lot more supervisory roles. But the day-to-days are not too much different from those when I was a consultant. Other than I'm leading a team now. I'm definitely handling a lot more firm initiatives as well. So yeah, it's definitely a great experience.
So you mentioned that you've gone from consultant to senior consultant, now to manager. What has made you be able to make all of those moves? What have you learned in each of those moves?
Yeah, for sure. I think starting fresh as a graduate coming into the actual real world was definitely the first 2 years of learning, where it was more like a sponge. I'm just absorbing all the knowledge, all the real world practices, how to handle a client call, how to prepare a deliverable. So those weren't to like the really the beginning of it, right? Laying the foundations. And then the senior consultant role was more, you already know what's going on. So that is really where you want to kind of explore the different fields that Deloitte has to offer, the industry has to offer, and then finding something that interests you, or you just maybe becoming like a generalist, like a really great generalist, right? And then so becoming a manager is definitely a lot more mentorship, right? You're guiding your team, you're leading all the deliverables and making sure everything runs smoothly. Is really between managing upwards and managing downwards as well.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And you've mentioned that your day-to-day hasn't shifted too much from being a senior consultant to a manager, but what does that day-to-day look like?
Yeah, so I guess really depends on the project, because sometimes it requires to be on client site and sometimes we can work from home. So regardless, the day normally starts with an internal status call where our own team kind of huddles together and then kind of just go over what is the big goal, where we are, and then what is to be done for the day and for the week as well. So after that call, we will see if there's any client meetings throughout the day, right? If there are, we have to make sure everything is, we have everything prepared, the decks, the deliverables to be discussed. And then after that, there are also like internal team meetings where we work on our deliverables and projects and to solve any impeding problems.
And you mentioned that as you've moved up, you've gotten more responsibilities. So there's been more things going on in your role, but how do you manage those different priorities?
For sure. I think it's definitely the two items that I value the most when it comes to managing priorities are time and impact, right? So if I have something due in 2 hours, then that is definitely my priority. And also whether the impact of that result, right? Like it essentially is the same thing when managing work deliverables and my personal life as well, time and impact.
Yeah. And you stated at the beginning that you started your role right after Fuqua at Deloitte. So you've been there for about 6 years. Why did you choose Deloitte, and what was your goal coming into the program?
Well, I think I've told this story a couple of different times, but I actually went into Fuqua with the goal of becoming an investment banker. Because I studied finance in my undergrad, right? So Wall Street was the dream for every single finance student. But essentially, the more I learned about consulting, the more I learned about how the day-to-days would look as an investment banker versus a consultant, I actually preferred consulting more because it's project-based, right? And that means, I would be able to work with different people, different fields of work and different industries as well. So I think that kind of exploration really sealed the deal for me. And plus, when I was going through the recruitment process, everybody at Deloitte I was like, because we do have a lot of Fuqua alumni at Deloitte. So I almost felt like I was leaving from the Fuqua family to the Deloitte family very seamlessly. And everybody seemed very supportive. It was a really great culture. So that was what sealed the deal for me.
That's great. That's great to hear. It's always good to feel like you're comfortable in an environment. So being able to transition from Fuqua family to Deloitte family is great to hear. I was on your LinkedIn preparing for this interview, and I see that you have a number of other certifications, such as CFA and FRM and PMP. How have those helped you in your roles?
Yeah, for sure. Just want to clear there, it was not mandatory for my role. But it was just something that I've started. I started my CFA level 1 while I was in Fuqua actually. And then because I was trying to get into finance, right? But then when I started in consulting in the financial services industry, none of these certificates were really a requirement, but essentially it was a voluntary learning initiative. And the knowledge base, right, like the content of those certifications really did help me to expand my knowledge base. Whereas coming into a client engagement, I would have a little bit more background knowledge than just going in without prior knowledge. So I think that's really helpful. And then I think, like, for example, the PMP, right, like it's really about project management, which would come in handy when we are actually managing every single project, the step by step, and then what is necessary and how do we resolve problems or issues when they arise. And I think the core, like the really beneficial point about these is that I've gained the ability to learn really fast, and also the adaptability, right, which is really important for a consultant.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And which one of those, if you had to highlight one, is there one that you would highlight more than the others that's benefited you?
Well, I think for my role and the industry, I think the FRM would be something that I would recommend to like graduate who might want to pursue the same like career option, just because you learn about kind of the structure of all the risk management contents, right, which is really helpful in like the finance field and like risk management operations. And is shorter in length, right? There's only 2 exams, and you can get everything done within a year if you work hard enough. So that would be something I would recommend, like the top. But I think the CFA definitely weighs more than the other 2, just because it's 3 levels and the content is really, it covers everything basically. Yeah, it's a lot of time and energy and monetary value as well.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's great to hear. We appreciate that insight. So you mentioned going from the Fuqua family to the Deloitte family. What is the office culture like at Deloitte, and how does it compare with some of your previous experience?
Yeah, sure. So I did have some entrepreneurial background before going into Deloitte. So one thing that attracted me the most was the entrepreneurial thinking of Deloitte's culture. So everyone's encouraged to think outside of box, right? To find the best and optimizing problem solving like solutions. And in addition, like I think the team's culture is very supportive. I feel I was very comfortable in raising my hand and asking a question whether the counterparty was a partner or a senior manager. So everything, was very supportive. It's like a really great culture.
That's great. What does your future look like? You've been able to move up the ladder in a good span of time. What do you think the future looks like for you?
Yeah, I think I would like to continue learn, explore with the opportunity that Deloitte provides, and with my role, just to kind of like push myself to the next level as well. And in addition, I would love to continue my involvement with the Fuqua family, whether as a recruiter for Deloitte or as an interviewer for the MMS program.
Yeah, that's fantastic. We really appreciate all the support that you give us. One last question for you before I let you go is, what is one piece of advice that you'd give to someone that's interested in going into consulting or interested in going into MMS?
I think for MMS, really enjoy yourself and do chase that dream of yours, because I think one day if you work hard enough, it will come true.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Winnie. It was really great talking to you. We really appreciate your insight, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much.